Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me. Paulina here, talking to you a little bit about this upcoming total solar eclipse. It is the Ring of Fire eclipse. It is also going to be a new moon. And as the sun becomes obstructed by the moon, we're going to obviously have a really big change of heart and a very big change in our geometry. So firstly, Libra the sign in which this situation will be taking place on the 2nd of October, is about the books. It is about the Akashic records, you can say. It's about law and order. It's about also fragility overcome through certain rules and understanding what the true vision of life is. It is a little bit, not necessarily unfeeling, it can be very brute honest, and it can be sometimes very significant as to what happens with people during this time, because here they may be taking a part of their Akashic record out and filling it in with a new realization. And also, as we've gone through Virgo in the last month, we've had a lot to do with recognitions, realizations, and yes, the mind was put together in a new and very significant way. And Libra likes to use this new neurology. She likes to use this new idea of what the world is, which comes from within, comes from the heart and from the mind being together. And she likes to put things into a certain type of puzzle for us. And she won't want us sometimes to do that which we've done. And she'll think about a new way or a new context of us to envision ourselves, just so that life is not so difficult. Having the simpler way out, having an easier solution is what Libra does best. And also having a simple, magical, perfect life is sometimes also what people kind of decide to do naturally. So if you're suddenly deciding upon a conclusion, or if you really, really want to be there, or you want to change something, maybe part of you is looking for simplicity. Like, look, I'm tired. I just want it all to make sense. I want it to add up. So adding things up, the geometry of life, maths, is also what Libra does very well. So it's just about recognition of where things are and where they cannot be, and also just the simple tasks and things that you have to do to keep the simpler living solutions alive. So this is not about conquest. It should not be about any kind of hysterical emotional upheaval. It should never actually have been about that. It's just about using your time and your intelligence in such a way that is not harming anybody, and that is very simple and maybe very ordinary, and maybe some of this is very mainstream, but it is going to inevitably help you give yourself the better thinking patterns, giving yourself the better outcome. And all we had to do all along was just to basically embrace simplicity, which is something that is very exciting for me as a reader, because I've seen many people recently overcomplicate things and do some extraordinary also damage to themselves by not wanting to just see what life is or what it was, and wishing to enable themselves to do more than they really should. And now we're understanding, oh, this is taxing, like this is too much for my organisms, too much for my mind. It takes too many pieces to make something work in my life. So the wounded energy, the wounded feeling is that people are going to really try very hard, and sometimes they really want to marvel at themselves, because Libra in 2024 is about being marveled at, and sometimes being marvelous for yourself, within yourself and your own psyche. And some of it is just going to be plain wrong. The best idea, or the better vision, is to just basically voice things as they are, see how come you are here where you are, and also how far you've come as a person after all, and try to repeat that which is innocent and that which is practical for you, within which there is just a simple meter. You don't have to overdevelop your personality to be suddenly very interesting or particular to people. You don't have to develop your psyche in such a way that it like breaks everything apart and blows everybody out of the water. You don't have to be also repetitive necessarily in what you're doing and what you are making of yourself. But it is really a time of trust and methods that do actually exist for good reason. So in certain cases, maybe it is good to have a look at ancient philosophies. In some cases, it is really good to look at your parents and what they've done with their life. There's nothing wrong with going backwards with the South Node and North Node retrograde. There's nothing wrong with looking at life as something that's already past. And then from that past, you bring up the best method of cooking, the best method of cleaning, the best method of, bringing up children, the best method of doing anything that you're doing at the moment, so that you don't make yourself feel that fear and that shock value reasoning that I'm seeing coming up for a lot of people today. So the shock value reasoning and the obsessive compulsive collections, obsession. Also, for example, if you suddenly want to spray yourself with lots of perfume, or you want to wear something magnificent and magical on the outside, or you want to treat somebody to a lot more than usual, like you want to buy your partner something epic, or you want to do something very, very amazing, outstanding, try to reel it in just a tiny bit and try to understand what for, not just relax and understand and look at your ideals. Also, look at really what you're after in life and try to see what is there in the world. Try to expect also less sometimes from other people and from yourself. And it's also really nice to stay well put and very well computed. So you don't want to make it all about that which you still haven't got. You don't want to necessarily go full Hollywood here. And you don't basically maybe want to do that which another person has done if they are somehow competitive with you, or they're competing with something that you're doing. So it's just more about being nourished. In some cases, it's about being comfortable and about also not being jealous of other people. It's about becoming a little bit better at what you're doing and also how far you've come, and making a simple, symmetrical layout of almost anything and everything you've got, so that you don't do anything over that which you've done, and you don't make believe something that you cannot accomplish. So also it is a moon that is new, and it is of course conjunct to the sun, or will be going over the sun obviously, and we're going to really have to understand what we really want to maybe make of ourselves in the next cycle. We have just gone through the equinox on the 22nd of September, and yes, for real, for certain people it's not going to be really there where it was anymore. There's going to be quite a lot of changes, and there may be public changes, because Libra speaks of sometimes authority and connections, and sometimes marriages and things that are very, very set in stone. And some level, people are not going to necessarily also buy that which you were doing before. They're not going to pay attention to that which you've done earlier. Sometimes you will be refreshed and renewed, and it is lucky for a person to start a new cycle. So if you're really super prepared right now, drop everything and just make sure that everything works on a simple symmetry, on a simple kind of format, because you don't care to do something that is too stupendous or like over embellished. You don't probably want to do anything that will eventually feel childish or naive. The idea is basically not to buy anything before the new moon eclipse situation, solar eclipse, not to do anything with people that is over the top. Try to put things together on a very base level, and step ahead by being kind of silent sometimes, or mark yourself as just very normal and neutral. Try to relax into what you've already got, and a new answer or new territory is going to somehow be there for you without you doing anything for it. So sometimes people get nominated, or sometimes you are self-nominating unconsciously, but this is not going to happen till after, like a little bit after the moon. So the idea basically is not to scraggle and try to make your life from scraps at the moment. It is not a good idea to struggle and to try to kind of like limit yourself or intimidate yourself or push on other people. Any kind of gush and any kind of irregular behavior is really bad for Libra, even if you think it's really funny and it's really like interesting, or you're doing something very epic, as this water trine between Mars, Venus and Saturn is going to probably push some people into hyper-creativity or these like ancestral creeds, which can also be kind of ironic or wrong sometimes. The better choice here is just to try to lay back and see what is the most simplest route and what has already been prepared for you? Who is already there for you? What people are coming up when you think friends? What are the simple instructions that come with your life today? Or what is the simpler way of looking at things? Because you simply don't want to overbear and overburden. And sometimes, in a very naive and quirky way, you might be incredibly overprepared, or you could be imagining that what you're going to do next and that which you're going to be as the sun eclipsed by the moon. It usually brings a kind of intimidating ending and a question, well, what is your life really about, and what is the real truth or the real intelligence behind that which you've got? Sometimes we have no idea. We have no idea until after the eclipse happens. So any kind of bulky shopping lists, any kind of ideas or personalities, any kind of new sensual partners, any kind of stories that you're spinning, you don't want to be there at the moment. You don't want to over embellish and also necessarily overprotect yourself. So basically come back down to the neutral. It is really good not to play with archaic energy during this time, not to try to fill out your mother's or your father's shoes, not to participate in anything that may not be necessarily wanted or needed from you. So you don't want to accidentally pull in too much energy. You don't want to also strengthen yourself by using ridiculous things, so you don't want to over embellish, you don't want to over structure, you don't want to overeat or oversay or over progress, simply because before the moon you will not probably know exactly who you are and where you are going. And that part of you that is not knowing, and that part of you that is hysterical, is one and the same. So being slightly naive is actually fine. It is fine. But as long as you're comfortable, and this is where we really feel questionable feelings, because we are not really that comfortable. We're not sure if this is where we are meant to be. Sometimes people question also a lot of their archaic bases during this time, like their mother and dad and their upbringing or civilization at large, or what is happening in the world today. So the basic idea is to try to not look back and just try to keep a sense of neutrality. On my Patreon, I've done a heck of a lot of audio recordings for this, and if you like, you can have a look at them. So the whole thing that I'm trying to take care of here for myself and other people is how to neutralize one's hysterias, one's needs and wants and desires, because Lilith is very close to the sun and South Node as well, and Mercury there as well. So she's going to be stroppy. Juno is very close as well. So it's going to be like, oh, I want this and I want that, and that never happened in my life, and why doesn't that happen to me, or that hasn't happened in my life yet. So the idea basically is to take yourself back and out of any predicaments, also any kind of like strange situations and storytellings, like cringy situations and weird outcomes, and try to detain yourself just like a few steps back so you don't fall into the maze of the undoing, which could be happening closer to the moon and the solar eclipse. The question is, what do you really want? And that sometimes is really hard. And we have a lot of brisk and imaginative methods of defining what that might be. So we have a lot of imagination. Sometimes people feel very hurt or harmed by their past, or they feel very unhappy about what has been. And sometimes with Lilith actually being close to South Node and illuminated by the sun, you might actually find things out. So it's up to you how you do it. Some people are finding out the truth about their family. Some people are finding a truth about their partners. Some people are finding the truth about themselves. I'm currently just feeling out what is happening in my body. So I'm going into those places in my body that don't feel good to me, and I'm learning to speak to them or learning to understand. So maybe this is something for you as well. The better idea is not to prod for the untruth. The best idea is not to prod for any desire or emotion. If you are sitting there with your phone in your hands, waiting for that person to call that you love very much, it's just endless desires and sentimentality, sexuality, what is life, very big philosophical discussions could be taking place during this time, very big, like mind over matter, enigmatic choices and choice making. So basically what I'm saying is that you need to just relax. And as I said earlier many times, simplify it down to the real strong symmetry and the regular life events that you're having now, no question. So if you are just doing what you're doing, keep on doing it. If you have to go somewhere and do something, okay, be careful. You know, it's not really that great a moon for travel or for escapes, because Lilith does love to escape. And it's not necessarily about magic either. It's not about harvesting anything or anybody during this time. It's not about harvesting something for the greater good of all people. It's not about ceremony space. If you are silly enough to do ceremony space during an eclipse such as this, okay, I salute you if you're that weird. But also try to breathe through it, because sometimes you think you've got it all, but you may exactly like land a fall. You may not needingly do something that you don't need to do. So less is more. No harm done if you've done some damage. Damage is really easily seen. So, for example, damage to your body, to your endocrine health, damage from electronics, damage from overdoing something, especially if you've been overly zealous. And also the nervous system issues that people have because they've been protruding so much or doing so much for everybody else. So I've done some audios on this on Patreon as to how you can just say no and control your life better, as you may also want to understand the servitude roles and the ambitions that we have to help others, to heal the world, to be a better person than sometimes we are, or we feel that we are. And we have to somehow show others who we are through certain deeds and tasks. Deeds and tasks were a very minor thing that happened in Virgo this time around this year. It's not actually really about deeds and tasks. It's just about vibration these days. You don't have to dig so far into making yourself worthy. You don't need to bring yourself up through challenges. You don't necessarily have to give so much at your job, or you don't actually have to be such a good person, such a good Samaritan to other people. It's just about worth being a normal thing. Like worth is just there. Like everything is worthy. Everybody is beautiful. So this feeling, unquestionable feeling of just being the beauty that you are, and being fine as you are, and being absolutely welcome on this planet as you are. That's very, very helpful, just to vibe with this feeling. If you are thinking about how to prepare yourself for the eclipse, yes, trust affirmations. For certain people, it is about that, and for certain people, it's just coming back out of these cycles of creating something, of being part of a group and having to copy other people, or having to say what other people like, or being subservient in any way. So there is like no harm done if you have been naturally also born into a family that favors a level of subservience, or where you've been through a kind of like an existential crisis as like a people, or a crisis as to who you are and what you really mean. And if you're going through this at the moment, a lot of stuff is happening to do with meanings and power, and some people are feeling a lot of pressure because they don't feel understood, loved, or wanted. And no matter how much they've done or how many hours they've spent doing something, they're still not kind of used to that feeling of not being sure of who they are and what they really want. And also another person in their life may be very close to them, or several people, or even the government, usually someone close, not paying them any attention. So the best idea here is to watch out for that. So if you're suddenly saying, I'm not worthy, or I'm not loved, or this person is not treating me the way that I would prefer, you have to really hone in on the details there and maybe have a look as to what is inside. Because some people are really struggling and they have some messy life choices and life results because they don't feel very beautiful about who they are. And sometimes they don't feel very good about what somebody else has done or said. Sometimes people feel very philosophical and uneasy because they're not getting those responses, like I'm not getting those lovely hugs and cuddles, or I'm not getting any respect from the people around me at work. And for this reason, like I'm going to just go like by myself and just like see if they'll notice, so all of this kind of stuff, really not necessarily passive aggressive, but all this pessimistic stuff is happening. The idea basically is to bring yourself back into yourself and your own feelings, and the feeling of worthiness that should be there as a natural guide. It should just naturally be. I am, therefore I am. I am, therefore I am. There is not really any interest beyond that, but we have Venus in Scorpio, so she is kind of stretching us with this Mars and Saturn at the trine. But what does it mean? But did he love me? Or does she really care? So all of that stuff basically starts to become very obvious later on. So don't push for things that you can't see and that which you can't cope with. And yeah, Lilith will take a bow there. Lilith is going to play a little game on many people if there is love and lust and sexuality involved, if there is any kind of commercial presence or obsession with money or obsession with power, anything like that, Lilith is going to cross the line with you and play a little game. And she's going to like it. But the best idea here is not to play games with Lilith, because this is a pointless pursuit and we all kind of know it. It's pointless. The best idea basically here is to no longer change yourself also for other people and no longer have these results where you're like, wow, that person loves me, I'm so happy. And if they don't love me, I'm so sad. Or if I win the prize, I'm going to be so happy. And if I don't win it, I'm going to be really, really disappointed in me. So the idea basically is not to have any of this hollowness that is happening, not to feel like you are tricked by anything or anybody, not to have the donkey carrot situation any longer, which means where you're strung by somebody else or by some other thing or by yourself into a situation where you should not have been. So very, very careful. Try to trust time. Be very careful. Try to stay naive and holy and be a child. Sometimes it is nice to stay a child. It's nice to get along and to see where people are at, but try not to play the game if there's any game. So risk-taking, personality shifts, pretending that you are not who you are. And also people with a lot of longing and a lot of potential and feeling like they haven't really done the thing or they haven't got it yet, or all of this like longing and sadness and sometimes hysterical thinking patterns. The best part of this is just to not go there. And especially if you understand, and I've said a lot about this on Patreon, if you understand that a person is just going to break down and cry in front of you constantly, even though you're not very good friends, or they're going to constantly complain about you to others, or another thing I've talked about recently is crimes committed against yourself, like that person didn't pay for their meal, they expected you to pay for them, and then they talked behind your back, then they said something under their breath that you really didn't know why they said it, and then they didn't text you back when you messaged them, and they just left the message there for days and days, and they didn't respect you. And they called you a friend once, but it doesn't feel straight and narrow, it doesn't feel perfect, it doesn't feel equilibrated, which is what Libra really wants during this time, is just to have things equal and to have people as equal. And in a way, sure, it is about being passive and it is about being kind of sly, and I talked a lot about this on Patreon in terms of people being kind of neutral, and then the idea of them being bypassed or being just a stepping stone for someone else. It doesn't feel actually that bad. So if you want to, you can have a look at the question of neutrality and feeling that you are not yet, for example, lucky enough to be embellished by other people, or feeling the pain of not having that which you think you want to have with someone or just by yourself, the fear of not being wanted, the fear of not being lucky in love or lucky as a friend, the fears that we sometimes feel, and these gross potentials that we have in our minds and our psyche as to like what we're meant to be doing here in this world is exactly what brings in the evil. So I talked a bit about evil for a while, and some people like, you have no idea what evil is. Evil is like this agent or this person or this guy or this monster, like it all comes from within. To expose yourself to a certain danger, you would have had danger within yourself or in your heart, and we can go on and on discussing this, but I'll just stop it right there. The whole feeling of someone else being sad, deranged, or life being unfair, you need to close this. And if you want, you can have a look at my Patreon, because I speak of this. I don't like repeating myself. I speak of this a lot during these recent audios about how not to damage yourself, and also how to stop feeling fragile, as you basically have to relax and realize the simplicity of your world. Things should be now in boxes. They should be really well achieved. Things should be obvious. If you don't have something or somebody, you don't need them. or it's just not up to you. And you don't need to be extra gentle or generous with people asking where that next thing is coming from. The idea basically is to look at how good you've got it and to realize what 4 things work out. So it's about maths. And sometimes it is also about a secret underground movement, which is what Lilith provides. And sometimes things will come up to the surface when they need it to be, but you see risk taking and trying to scour or like hop realities or be kind of like insensitive to other people or yourself. This is going to be a lot of hard work later. So what I'm basically saying that also with these trines between Venus, Mars and Saturn and the water signs, and also between, I suppose, on the chart you see, who is it? Oh, yes. Uranus and Pluto specifically. And it's also kind of touching Moon and that sort of south node area gently. We don't really have enough. And sometimes we don't feel like we want to go and do that which we've lined up for ourselves. But it is better to be brisk and quick and jump off that feeling, or away from that feeling of something ongoing and sad and dark and damaging, because this is going to implant itself into your life. Because the universe right now is asking us, well, what do you really want? And if we are like, oh, everything is so horrible, and like, oh my gosh, and that person, this person, this is kind of twisting your life around. And sometimes the universe will go, yeah, well, if that's what you want, then that's what you want. If you feel like you are disempowered in a situation, okay, that's what you want. So we have to become very, very quick at judging things sometimes and not show ourselves in the way that we don't want to see ourselves later. This is imprinting time. I already said the dragon imprints things sometimes for the rest of your life. And it's a really big time for psyche refurbishment. If you did not want that which you said, if you did not like that which you've done, if you did not want to be that who you have started to become, I would suggest not to bother with it. The idea basically is to be relaxed and try to be a friend of yours. And if you can't smile at things, if you can't be just a friend to who you are, you have to nurture yourself. You have to maybe follow different guidelines, but usually everything is already there. So I can't state this enough. Everything and everybody that you'll ever need right now, for the next phase of your life, is already set up and is already there. The whole question of territory and being lucky or not, that's a big question for some people. Am I lucky? Am I dreaming the happy dream? Am I like real? Am I going to get better than this? Am I getting as well as I should be? It is not something that you need to question, because you may not know it, but something or somebody has noticed you, or you may not really fully be lucky within yourself and your set of tools, your toolkit for life, but something or somebody might actually be able to make a choice for you. So the idea basically, and I've talked about this for ages now, is not to consider yourself as an individual on which shoulders is the world. You're not like Titan carrying your life, carrying your world. The idea is to relax and to see that life will inevitably give you that which you need, as long as you stop discussing things or feel this fight or flight that a lot of people are feeling, or as long as you don't murder your time or your potential and you don't put yourself through hours of unnecessary work when you know that you could be doing better than that. And why would you be doing better than that? Is that if you really listen and if you grow in sensitivity, we already had Virgo. Virgo was the time to develop your sensitivity. Libra, not so much. It's a little cruel. Libra is very cut and dry. But, if you have time, sit with it, like sit with what you've got and just basically prepare, like buckle up for the ride. And I'm not saying that people are going to necessarily have a hard or cruel time. It's just more like the insensitivity in oneself can sometimes not fully understand or regard nature for who she is and what the universe really could truly be. So we some of the time have this arrogance and we have this push and we have this way of seeing ourselves and other people, and we don't actually recognize that it's all been lined up for us already, and the better choices have already been put into our energetic escrow. We don't understand that life has already given us what we need, or she is just about to give us a gift, or she's going to help us steer the way that we'd actually eventually want to go. And the purpose the purpose and the purity of this is just to understand the simplicity of the golden mean, which is Libra, and the sensitivity to detail and mathematics, which she's got. She doesn't want to line you up just because. She lines you up for the greater future, or the greater collaboration of all people and things, seen and unseen. So it's not really about your choice and you pushing or plowing or making sure that the deal gets done, and that the bet is made, and that you've got like all that, money, or you got all that power to face the world and to compare yourself to anybody. The trick is basically to try to reschedule things in a way that is most possible for you, to make sure that you are paying attention to a part of you that is tired or that feels done. To have some compassion also for other people, and no longer to push as if you are trying so hard to get to the top of the mountain, because there is sometimes no top of the mountain and you never really had to go this far. And for some reason, I'm also feeling a lot of people could be very repetitive in what they're trying to do, what they're thinking or feeling, because they can't face the fact that there are certain, not necessarily failures, but there are certain neutralities. It's like no matter how much you shake the situation, you try to pull and push, it is just going to stay stagnant. Also, with Mars being in Cancer, it doesn't sometimes have to be the way that you imagine it. You just have to relax and release the pressure and the constant talking and bartering or giving away or trying to pull people into your game. The whole thing is also, for some people, is about avoiding the possibility of being questionable. It is so not easy right now to be questionable, and it is so hard to have no trust or no journey with others or with another person. So the best possibility is to try to step back and try to get rid of that feeling that makes you want to escalate things, and be about that which is not going to come true anytime soon, and try to basically mean that which makes sense or that matters to you. So basically, if you're understanding, wow, I've got actually a really nice family, or like, wow, like actually my home is like one of the most beautiful homes, or like I just love, I just love my life, I just love like walking around, and I'm okay. This is not about mediocrity necessarily, but it is. It's just about understanding where you are now set up. What is your neutral? And then after you understand this with peace and compassion, you're no longer hiding the fact that maybe there is something very ordinary and lukewarm about you, because nobody's really like that big a deal. Like nobody needs to be that big a deal. As you recognize these ordinary traits of character, or very natural and neutral ways that you actually are living your life, you will be given a lot more. So the neutrality of life repeats, and the question is maybe, did you want to just accept things as they are? Like, did you want to accept black for black and white for white? Did you want to accept like peace for peace and anger for anger? Did you want to maybe accept just like yourself as you are? So it's actually sounding really maybe even immature to say, because it sounds so pathetic, right? I was like, oh, this is like a pathetic event. I thought it was going to be like one of those global awakenings, but actually it takes a lot of maturity and self-mastery to actually accept peacefulness, and to acquire a certain gentleness and care for that which you do have, so that you're not pushing or pulling yourself out of proportion. And most of us do have a disproportionate side. We have South Node conjunct to the Sun, and Lilith there, and the Moon, and also Mercury there in conjunction, and Juno not far away. It's very, very good not to see us struggle. South Node is where you basically go to sleep. Some of it is just about relaxation and passivity, to the point where you don't even remember. You don't even have to remember like how far you've come, or like how long away it was, or like what you had to go through. So karmic debts, I mean, you don't have to talk about this necessarily with me, but you can. You can have a look at my Patreon. I've given people a lot of little secrets on Patreon this month. If you like, you can have a look. How to neutralize your karma and just forget that you've got it, and imagine that you don't need to keep going with it. And it comes to behavioral patterns and also neurological patterns. You don't need these patterns. You don't need to apprehend anything. You don't need to go forward. You don't need to rush. But this is not sometimes where people imagine life to be. They don't imagine life to be a nice, beautiful dream. They don't want it to be exact. They don't want it to be correct. They want it to be something else. And that's what for we struggle, like drinking too much coffee, like making too many friends, doing things that are going to naturally offset and disbalance our natural system and our ecosystem as well when it comes to the physical natural world. So that's basically all I got. Keep natural, keep neutral, try to not necessarily entertain yourself. Now that is a hard thing to say. Like, oh, entertain yourselves, not entertain yourselves at all. It's like try to respect the neutral and find the magic in the normal, and try to respect yourself for also some things that you cannot any longer do. Like if you can't work that many hours now because you've lost your stamina or you have burnout, just respect yourself. If you can't make this friend like a boyfriend, you can't, or you will not, or you can't make any more money than what you are making today. It's not about struggling, and it's not about a heap of questions and a heap of troubles, which is where the evil is, during this time. That's a shadow. You don't need this anymore. Try to basically respect and just present yourself well. And I'll be talking about presentation and self-representation heaps during the October reading. And for real, not that many people maybe want this, but I'll just say we have to reveal ourselves and love and trust the beauty that we have within ourselves as people. If we want to see a beautiful world and beautiful people around us, we have to understand that there is something coming to an edge here. There's something that is becoming iconic and simply divine during this month, and we have to understand what Libra carries, which is the golden mean and the simple potential in all things being obvious and normal. So if you don't like yourself when you are normal and when you are actually who you are, if you are struggling with your real personality or the way that nature made you, this is a lot of heartache later on. So basically, this whole reading could be just put into the one, miracle line, which is self-acceptance. Self-acceptance and self-love. That's all it is about. And then after you go through this moon, as I said earlier, with the South Node being there, Lilith being there, everything is conspiring to help you. Try to see where life naturally sort of like moves you as a current. And it's good to stop imagining anything on top of that which is natural for you. And it's good not to pretend that you are not you. So that's basically all I got to say for this time. And yeah, thank you. Have a look at the things below. And I will be preparing an October video for you now. Thank you.